So you're thinking first half over, and I've been trying to correlate the side and the total here, and I just don't know if I can do it. If we're thinking over, we're thinking Dallas is going to be a little bit more efficient, make a few more threes, because they have a math problem. And the thing that worried me the most about the over in Dallas is that Boston showed absolutely no interest in continuing to go in any tempo whatsoever with a lead. And if that is the case, come the second half, if they're still up, they slowed that thing down to a crawl. They were actually taking shot clock violations there in the second half with that big a lead. So that's the problem I have, that if Boston is this much better than Dallas, and Dallas is not going to make threes because they have a math problem with the 15 extra threes for Boston is a math problem for Dallas. So that's the only thing I'm worried about. But to your point, maybe that's a worry in the second half, not necessarily early in this game.
Yeah, I think if this game were to go over the total, Joe, it's certainly you think the first half number is going to go over as well. We talked about this a little bit. I talked about this on the video yesterday. Dallas, I mean, they finished with 42 points, I think it was, in the first half of game one. This is a team that usually scores a lot in the first half, 58.4 points per game in the first half, as a matter of fact. Now, they give up quite a few, too, in the first half, 57.5. So that's an average of 115.9. Their games in the first half, and then we know what Boston can do in the first half, right? They were, again, spot on their average. They scored 63 in the first half of game one. They averaged 62.4 for the year, give up 54.5. So they're at 116.9. The first half total, Joe, is sitting at 110, which is right around where it was in game one, as a matter of fact. It's interesting as well. I think this is something a lot of people know, but it's certainly worth reiterating. Game one, obviously, we saw all that over money come in. We have not seen any movement with this total now. You know, by tip-off, it was at 217. We're still sitting at 214.5 here. I gravitate towards the first half over because, like you, I do worry if Boston gets up again, the tempo will slow dramatically in the second half.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this total, not to mention with this with the side, because it was at 7.5 as soon as the game was over, about 11:30 on Thursday night there, BP. It was 7.5. It lasted for about 5 minutes. The sevens came in. I saw 6.5s popping up yesterday. It looks like there's a little more buyback now. We're starting to see 7.5s again, 7 rather. If you got the 7.5, and it looks like Big Daddy did in the chat room, so kudos to you here, my man. But if you were getting 7.5, good. I think the betting public, it was a clear sharps and public divide in game one. Yes. The pros were on one side, the Joes were on Dallas. It was very clear from the start here. I think the public is giving them one more shot here. It could be, BP, to get within. And again, they don't have to win this game, but we're talking about keeping it close enough at 7.5. And we know the Boston Celtics are notorious for taking their foot off the gas, and the game twos have been horrific for them. Don't forget, the game two in Indiana, they almost lost game one in overtime. So that was a different story. They didn't blow them out in game one. Every blowout in a game one by Boston has led to an absolute debacle in the second game at home here. Are they able to get past that? Because if they are, Dallas could very well be in trouble in this series.
Yeah, and let's not forget the Mavs got the deficit from 29 to 8, basically within 12 minutes of actual game time. So there was that Boston malaise that you spoke of we saw early in the second half. I agree with you. I think Dallas is going to be maybe not as large of a public dog as they were in game one, but I still think they're going to be a public dog here. When we started this discussion a couple minutes ago, I said the number's just not high enough for me on the road with Dallas. I mean, tip your cap to what Dallas has done so far, but Boston, to me, is clearly the better team here. And, it's funny that the media gets its talking points and runs them into the ground, but
Yep.
In the case of Kristaps Porzingis, Joe, you really can't overstate what a difference he made in that game. I mean, he was out of his mind in the first half. And while Boston thoroughly dominated the Mavs in that first half of game one, I don't think it would be unfair to say that they can't play that well again. I think they absolutely can play that well again, Boston. They had the great stretch there where they couldn't miss from three, but over the course of 4 quarters, they absolutely can win by 8 or more points here. I don't trust Dallas. Only getting 7 now in this spot, and like you said, the early line move that could be just some zigzag stuff or what have you. But the number's not high enough for me. It's going to be interesting what it's at in Game 3 when this thing moves back to Dallas.
Yeah, Lord Farquaad back in the house. Always a pleasure to see you, my man. I can't even believe there is a Sean Evans sighting in the chat room. Holy damn, dude. Been looking in the obituaries for you. What is going on, Sean Evans? Welcome back to the pack here, man. He does like Luka here getting a touchdown. Lord Farquaad says, listen, it is a 1 seed versus a 5 seed after all. They certainly didn't play like a 5 seed in the West in much deeper competition. So I don't know that is necessarily a right narrative there. Listen, I do think anytime you have Kyrie and Luka on the court and the history of Boston getting a little lackadaisical. Look, they did it in the third quarter, right? They did it in the third quarter. They, that lead was only 8, and that is very possible again to happen in this series. And can Dallas steal a game? Yes. Is it going to be maybe when they get home in Game 3? Yes, probably. But we've always said it, BP. The biggest problem with Boston, if they don't win the championship this year, is Boston. It's probably not going to be anything the other team does. Boston will always be its biggest, worst enemy. If they've closed the door on those skeletons in the closet, then I think they'll be just fine. They'll win this thing in all likelihood 5, at worst 6 games here. I still am not convinced this is going to be a sweep. All right, so we got NBA tomorrow. Can I add a couple
things? I just want to add a couple things just to address the thing. Number one, with Boston, remember Tatum and Brown only combined for 38 points. So when I say they can certainly score more in Game 2, there you go right there. The 2 stars only had 38. Also, in regards to the commenter who talked about it being a 1 versus a 5 seed, which is, of course, factually accurate, just to throw this up, teams that close above minus 180 as series favorites in the NBA Finals, like Boston did here, they have won the NBA Finals 28 of the last 31 times. Meanwhile, non-top 3 seeds in the NBA Finals have only won 1 of their last 9 appearances. Boston is a 5 seed. Just wanted to throw that out there that, well, I'm not saying it's the end-all, be-all, and the reason Dallas is going to lose the series is they're a 5 seed, but when the commenter talked about this being a 1 versus 5 seed, there are some historical trends that back up that is a mismatch, no doubt.
Yeah, no, it is. And listen, they did an amazing job, flawless execution for Boston. They're going to need to do it 3 more times. They're certainly capable of doing it. But again, winning the game and covering the game from our perspective could be 2 totally different things. And hopefully it is 2 totally different things for those that are holding Dallas tickets, getting ready for Game 2. All right, so let's go with it here, BP. By the way, shout out to those of you in the chat room hanging with us here. John Lim in the house here. Jesse Schule coming up, guys. Going to drop some knowledge. Not only something tells me he is not going to be a big fan of the Boston Celtics coming up, guys. I'm just telling you right now, if you're a Dallas backer, you're going to love to hear what Jesse has got to say here. Also, he's going to break down this NHL Game 1, the Stanley Cup Finals coming up your way. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up for us. We certainly appreciate you guys taking the time to hang with us on a Saturday. So, BP, baseball today. Loaded card. You've picked, of course, one of the most obscure games nobody's interested in looking at. So why don't we go ahead and start with that game as we have the Detroit Tigers taking on the Brewers. Did the Tigers play yesterday? I can't recall if they
were scheduled. They were scheduled. Yeah, they were scheduled.
Wasn't Olsen supposed to pitch? They
were physically present at the park. They had their jerseys on. They took the field. But they might as well not have, because yes, they lost 10-0 with Reese Olson on the mound, Joe. And we've talked about it on the show. As a matter of fact, I think it was my last time here on Last Call. I said to back Olson. He was one of the most hard luck pitchers in all of baseball, and he won that day. I think it was against Toronto. Well, yesterday, hopefully you did not back Reese Olson and the Tigers, because they got rocked 10-0. All that scoring for the Brew Crew came in the first 5 innings, much of it off Olson. But here's the thing, Joe, when you look at Saturday's rematch, the odds going into yesterday's game, it was basically a pick'em price. Detroit was even a short favorite at some shops. Now you have a situation off a 10-0 win. Olson's not pitching for the Tigers. Milwaukee is a prohibitive favorite on the road, and I don't really agree with that, quite frankly. I know Freddie Peralta's pitched well for him, and Casey Mize has, well, he's not pitched all that well for the Tigers, but plus 1.5 is now a very affordable option here on the home team. Detroit, I'm not sure if you could trust a Milwaukee offense that was held to 2 runs in 3 games in its last series. Granted, that was against Dan Alexander's Phillies. But I don't know if you could trust the lineup like that to win by 2 or more runs again today. This has the feel to me of a low-scoring game. And again, this is all about price for me. Yesterday, again, Tigers, even money. Now today, we could grab plus 1.5 at minus 115, minus 120. I like it. Give me the Tigers getting the 1.5 head start.
Oh, liking the Tigers here today. I believe Andrew said he left the Brewers off my card. He says the line is very, very confusing to him here today. And I don't understand the Brewers here. Peralta on the mound, didn't have the greatest of outings. The total was only 8 there, BP. I mean, Milwaukee was capable of putting that up number by themselves here. Is this an over game as well?
No, I think again, like I said, Milwaukee, what we saw, I don't know how to explain. I think yesterday was one of those things where you just throw your hands up and say, okay, it was a Friday night in the Major League Baseball season. In the last segment, Tokyo Brandon said, baseball's a marathon, and you're going to have some games over the course of a 162-game season. You just look at it, you scratch your head and say, I don't know how that happened. I mean, Olsen, while he wasn't getting wins, it was inarguable that he'd been pitching well. And for him to get shelled the way he did, he gave up 12 hits in 4 innings. That's just awful. I don't know what that was, especially against a Brewers lineup that, like I said, did nothing at the plate in their previous series, which, again, admittedly was against the Phillies, who have a great pitching staff. But I don't think that we see the same kind of offense from Milwaukee today that we saw yesterday. I just don't.
Appreciate it, Ray in the house, telling everyone, let's go. Hit that thumbs up. Hit the like button for us. I mean, my goodness, who else is going to bring you Bryan Power, the bar owner extraordinaire? Here. If you guys have not seen him bartend, you're going to have to check it out. It is absolutely outstanding. It does not get any better than that. Really,
I'm a strong guy,
really
Joe.
A nice place too. I heard. I looked on Yelp. Not a lot of positive things to say about Team Power Bar, but that's okay. We appreciate it. Let me ask you, if we can, what we're going to do with your Guardians. I did not understand the line yesterday.
No,
where Miami was a slight favorite in some books before first pitch there. But today, not so much. They're still laying $140 on the road against Miami. I believe it's Lively going for you today here with the Guardians.
Yes, Ben, don't call me Blake Lively on the mound for the Guardians here. He's pitched pretty well overall. They've won the last 4 times he's taken the mound. He's got a 2.84 ERA. Look, I'll be honest with you, as I'm always honest with you. I'm always honest with people. I had Cleveland yesterday. I didn't understand that price either. And, it turns out the price was the price for a reason. Miami got the win. I wonder if that can maybe be chalked up to the fact that, the Marlins had the off day on Thursday. The Guardians, they were wrapping up a series with the Royals. I was willing to look past that because the Guardians had a rainout on Wednesday. So they had an unscheduled off day before that. But, it's interesting. The Guardians, their offense has been so much better than expected this year. It did nothing yesterday with just 2 runs. It did nothing in that finale. The Thursday loss to Kansas City, very uncharacteristic. As a matter of fact, Joe, let's go ahead and say both these losses, the last 2 days for Cleveland, uncharacteristic because it's been on the bullpen. I've come on these shows many times and told the people how great this Cleveland bullpen is. I'd put it up against any bullpen in Major League Baseball. And they've come in situations where they had the lead or it was a tie game and they lost. The loss was on the Cleveland bullpen. I don't think that would happen again. So if you like Miami, I think you have to attack early on this. You would have to maybe look first 5 if you liked the underdog in this situation, because I can't see the Cleveland bullpen faltering a 3rd consecutive time. Just can't.
Jesse Schule has a fantastic comment in the chat room, basically pointing out the fact that your love for Boston probably comes from the fact that most of those bottles were empty behind you at the bar, and I'm not going to argue, Jesse. That looked like a lot of recyclables going on in the back there. Not a lot of liquid in that top shelf bar behind you there.
They won by 20 points. They won by 20 points. It was. I think there was a. Yes, there. It was a nice win. I know lots of other people had. It was a nice site-wide thing too. I saw Ski. Yep. I saw Merrill had 5% plays on him. There were a lot of. Again. Yep. Doesn't mean I'm going to come back with them in game 2. I play no favorites, Joe. You know that. I'll turn on a team.
No, I know. Listen, but
Jesse,
I was a little more impressed with the straw behind his ear, but that's okay. That's a story for a different day. EV Evans in the house here has got a question for BP. What's the best approach when you're looking at pitchers that are new to the league here? And we see this throughout the baseball season. Are you a guy there, BP, that does look at what kind of numbers? Certainly, I think strikeouts and walks are the big things for new pitchers in minor leagues. There's a couple of different sites to be able to pull that data. You want to know exactly what you're looking at. Can a guy control? Can he not? How do you approach some new pitchers here, BP?
Typically, they're stay away from. I like to see something at the big league level. I can't remember I don't know if all season, and I'm just going off the top of my head, obviously, I don't think I've played on or against a guy making his big league debut this year. I don't think I have.
You didn't bet Skeens? You weren't a big Paul Skeens guy?
No, I didn't bet because there was so much hype behind him, obviously, that, I didn't think the price was right. It's something I like to see with my own eyes, what we have. I like to get some data at the big league level. So I don't want to say I've never done it, but it's something I rarely do. There would have to be something else in the water, so to speak, not in the tequila, but in the water, that would cause me to bet a game with a guy making a big league debut.
Yes, I would. To me, it's all about location, velocity and location. Yeah. Has he shown a propensity to walk everyone in the AAA, AA, wherever they're calling him up from? Does he have the kind of velocity and the spin that's going to be a problem? Baseball Savant's pretty good with that, guys, if you're looking to get that kind of information there, EV Evans. But at this level, it's all about, can you put the damn ball where you want and the catcher is asking for it? If you can, you might have some success. If you can't, that might be a pass altogether there. Phillies and Mets here. Ray is looking at the over. And again, for those of you just joining us, we told you this ballpark, by all indications that they're playing in London, because you're trying to figure out what the dimensions are. I get that. And it's 390 to dead center field. I think that's the biggest part of the ballpark. Wind is blowing out double digits, right center field in this game here today. Most people compare it when you compare ballparks. The most, I guess, comparable they're saying, BP, is Fenway Park, which is definitely a hitter's ballpark. We know this. So if you're going to give me double-digit winds blowing out, questions around the health of Suarez in this game in London worry me with the thumb and not usually having the same workout. I don't know what we're going to get from him. Minea, I think, is just a gas can waiting to get the match lit at some particular point. It certainly feels, it's up to 10 now, it certainly feels like Major League Baseball maybe has a special shipment of balls that show up at this game, and we get 20 runs here. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, we've seen that in international games before. Now, similar to the question we just had about, first-time starters, I tend to say, let's take a look. An unknown ballpark like this, same thing. I'm not on this game, in full disclosure. That said, I do think Suarez is probably due for some negative aggression. And B, what I think you can hang your hat on if you want to take the over in this game, Joe, both of these lineups are hitting lefties really well of late. You're looking at a Phillies team over the last month, a 112 WRC plus, and the Mets are even better. 129, the Mets. My goodness, they are just crushing lefties as of late. So both these guys are southpaws, as you know. Two lineups crushing lefties. It's a ballpark that, by all accounts, is going to be favorable to the hitters. So no surprise at all. We've got the high total. So, yeah, I mean, if you believe what you read, over is the only way you can play this total, given how these two lineups have hit lefties.
All right. The tequila's starting to hit you. But quite honestly, there's only one person I'm going to ask if whether or not the Phillies are going to win. And that's the guy behind the microphone. Dan, testing 1, 2. Dan, are the Phillies the right side today?
I mean, the support for the fans is going to be there. The thing about it is I'm worried about Suarez's hand. You knew my favorite bet was Suarez to record a win. This is a live bet for me. See what it's like out there. See what the vibe is. But that being said, Joe, go Phils. I'm hammering them with both fists.
I figured you would. I figured the voice of God right there, voice of reason, not you, Brian Power. But I also don't mind his under 16 and a half outs because I don't think they're going to leave him out there. I don't mind that look either. Ranger Suarez under 16 and a half outs.
Bullpen
if there is any sign of discomfort or a problem, they're pulling his ass. I can promise you that. Go ahead, BP.
And that's kind of correlated with the over, right? And the Mets, how they do get. I mean, if the Mets continue to do what we've seen them do against lefties over the last 30 days, that just, that correlates to just a short stint there for Suarez. Absolutely. Good look, Joe.
Yes.
Love that.
Shout out to Hal L in the chat room. Appreciate you coming by. Playmaker here, as well as Daniel Berry. Thanks, guys, for stopping by here on the Shorts vertical feed. Shout out to those of you joining us once again in the chat room. Jesse Schule coming up here. Roger Long likes a Schwarber homer. Why not? Let's be realistic with this ballpark. Those very special Rawlings balls that Major League Baseball has rolled in. I would imagine we're going to get a few long balls when it is all said and done. Guys, don't forget, hit that... go ahead and hit that thumbs up for us. And subscribe if you haven't done so. We certainly do appreciate it. Playmaker, we're going to get some hockey picks for you coming up here. In the meantime, BP, what is locked, loaded, ready to roll over at WagerTalk.com for you today?
Well, I got a rebound from a Friday that was, quite frankly, a little uglier, even uglier than that one right there, that picture right there. But the good news, Joe, it's Saturday. Last 4 Saturdays, I'm a perfect 12-0. We swept the board all 4 times. You go back the last 7 Saturdays, 23-3. I attribute my Saturday success to all these hours I spend with you here on Wager Talk Last Call, Joe. I think it just the good mojo just rubs off. But in all seriousness, we have a 4% best bet locked and loaded for tonight. It's just my second 4% total this baseball season. The first one, that was an easy winner, cashed by the 7th inning. It was an over on the Phillies Giants, who played on a Sunday night game in early May. This is a 4% total as well. So you head on over to my page, wt.buzz/BP to pick that up. I'll have my Game 2 NBA play up in the next few hours as well.
So let me be the first to say, BP, absolutely nobody is interested in you rubbing anything off. But I will tell you this here. I don't think it's a coincidence that you also happen to have your best record when you join us here on Last Call on Saturdays. I think that is absolutely shocking. If we're being 100% truthful there. BP, always a pleasure. That's a lie. But really, best of luck here today. We'll see you again soon. Good luck. Bottoms up there at the bar. Hope it all works out for you there, BP.
Joe,
get him the hell out of here, please, Dan.
You're
Thanks.
the best, Joe.
All right, good seeing you, BP. Thanks. All right, good stuff there. All right, thanks very much. Big shout out to John Finley. He's lost. He was in the Instagram drinking room. Now he's over on YouTube Shorts. We're trying to get him back in to the regular crew over there. John Finley, always a pleasure, my man, to see you here on this weekend. Julio Robles in the house, also City by the Bay. And I don't know if our next guest has been on here, and I'll answer that question for City by the Bay coming up. We'll do that with Jesse. But I don't know if we've had Jesse Schule on Last Call yet, but if it's, we'll just go with it's his debut here. Jesse, always a pleasure, man. The simple fact, the way you just ripped BP in the chat room, you've got carte blanche on this show, my friend. Anytime you want, you just let us know, and you can come swinging by on a Saturday here. But let's start with that ripping of BP here. It sounded like the overtone is you're not 100% sold on the Celtics like everyone else is right now. Is that fair?
Typical Celtic fans, they got short memories, perhaps drinking too much like BP, as you showed in that nice image you displayed for us. But I think people forget, they threw up all over themselves in Game 2 against the Cavs. They threw up all over themselves. They almost threw up all over themselves in Game 1 against the Pacers. They did throw up all over themselves in Game 2 against the Heat without Jimmy Butler. And then they lost to the Heat in a Game 7 at home last year. So, I mean, let's not forget about the history of this Celtics team. And, let's be honest. If Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and Derek White play the way they did in Game 1, Dallas is probably not going to win any games in this series, but that's asking a lot for all your role players to play out of their minds. I think you got to look at a way to capitalize on the recency bias here. People just saw Dallas look as bad as they can possibly look, and Boston to look as good as they could possibly look. And for me, things usually come back closer to the center, and that's what I'm looking for in Game 2. One way to do that, I think, is in the player prop market. And one thing that I did agree with that BP said, despite his overall drunkenness and not very sharp take on anything he said, but one thing he said was Kyrie was 0-for-5 from beyond the arc, and he expects him to shoot better in Game 2. Well, Kyrie is hitting 40.2% in the playoffs. He hit over 40% in the regular season. He's made 45 three-point shots this postseason, and he's averaging 2.5 per game. I like him in a head-to-head matchup against Jason Tatum, who's shooting just 29.9% from beyond the arc. He has 32 made three-pointers in these playoffs, so that's 13 fewer than Kyrie, albeit he's played 2 or 3 fewer games, but still he's only averaging 2.13 per game. So to sum it all up, Kyrie is hitting for a higher percentage, significantly higher. He's made significantly more three-point shots. He's averaging more three-point makes per game, and he's plus 110 in the head-to-head three-point matchup in Game 2. The math ain't mathin', and I'll take the plus 110.
It's amazing to me, Jesse, just the pure fade, even before Game 1 of Kyrie, as if he's like he's Obi Toppin. No offense, John Finley, but what are we like? You don't think he's going to at some point in this make a difference for Dallas, even if they don't win the game? He's still, he's still a Hall of Fame style player. He's still with Luka. They're still the best combo out there. You got to feel like Luka and Kyrie together watched the tape, had a couple of days to go over it. I'm expecting better efforts from them as well as the role players. They're not getting swept is what I'm getting to here, Jesse, which a lot of people are now switching to believe that it's over for Dallas after one game.
Yeah, I think one of you guys said it earlier on this show or maybe on yesterday's show. Maybe you and Andy yesterday I was listening to you, but I certainly think you can come back with Dallas here in game 2. And if they don't cover or win or cover or both, there'll be a really good bet in game 3, specifically for the first half. So that's one thing I'm looking at is I'll probably be on Dallas in some fashion here in game 2. But if that doesn't pan out, I'm not going to be deterred to come back with them in game 3, probably for the first half.
So I just want to recognize Sports Avenger there complimenting me, saying that apparently I look like a Pennsylvania farmer today. I could stand up right now, but then that WagerTalk thong would be in everyone's face, and you probably don't want that too. So, but they are available in the shop room. I appreciate you pointing out my Amishness here, Sports Avenger. Always a pleasure to see you there. And by the way, Jesse, you're ripping and continuing ripping of Bryan Power. Much welcomed here on the show. So again, carte blanche anytime you want to come on here. All right, we've got a game coming up in the Stanley Cup here. Finally, it feels like it's been forever, Jess. And the Panthers taking on Edmonton. I hate to say it, but the entire country of Canada is behind Ed. They can't stand Edmonton during the season as long as Toronto's alive, right? Or Calgary or anybody else. But now that Edmonton is their last hope, apparently the entire country of Canada is backing them because they want the cup north of the border here, Jesse. Well, they got to win 4 games. Do they win game 1?
I don't think so, or it's going to be tough. I'm concerned about the goaltending, and that's basically been the Achilles heel of the Edmonton Oilers for years. They've always been able to score goals. Connor McDavid burst onto this scene. He's the best player in the NHL for the last 5-6 years. He's certainly the best player in this series, but goaltending is always an issue for the Oilers. Now, Stuart Skinner was out of his mind in the last few games of the conference finals, but if you look at his overall body of work, it is concerning. He ranked near the bottom of the NHL in save percentage during the regular season. Neither of these two goaltenders rank in the top 10 in the postseason in save percentage. I know Bobrovsky's got a better resume. He's had his ups and downs, but the language you guys seem to like is throw up all over yourself. He threw up all over himself in the Stanley Cup Finals last year, going 1-4 with a 5.91 goals against average. And what I'm looking at here is I'm going to go against the grain because most people look to bet unders in the Stanley Cup Finals. Most people think the offenses are going to struggle coming off a long layoff. But I'm just concerned with these two goaltenders that are, and specifically Stuart Skinner for Edmonton, who really doesn't have great overall numbers. He was playing out of his mind, but that was like a week ago against the Dallas Stars. Whatever momentum he had, that groove he was in, is he going to regress back to the goalie that we've seen for the entire season and the majority of the playoffs? I think there's a good chance of that. So the bet I like is the Florida Panthers team total over half a goal for the first period. I think Florida is going to come out strong, and I don't have too much faith in Stuart Skinner early in this hockey game.
Jesse, that's well done, Sean. Well done in here. We got a bunch of fashionistas in the chat room, Jesse. You don't get that at WagerTalk today. I'll tell you that right now. Let me ask you this though, because if you like Florida over that half a goal in the first period, do you like the over first period altogether as well? You expect Edmonton to do just the same? How much do you factor in the layoff here? 6 days, 7 days for both teams here? Are we getting rust at this particular point?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's the traditional thinking is we're going to get rust. But like I said, normally when you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, you're looking at goaltenders that are the best in the business, because you don't usually make it to the Stanley Cup Finals when your goalie isn't even in the top 10 in save percentage, and that's both these goaltenders. And like I said, we saw Bobrovsky really vomit all over himself in last year's Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep.
So I think I'm looking for rust for the goaltenders, and I'm looking for, Edmonton's got the best power play, not only in the regular season, but that's carried over into the postseason. They got 19 power play goals. Florida is number 2 with 14 power play goals so far. Both teams have great offenses. While there is going to be some rust, I would lean over here.
And it's so funny too when you look at. And this was the thing that stuck out to me, Jesse, not because I'm a half hour from the stadium and that I'm going to be at the game tonight, or that I'm a Panther guy. But when you look at the path for the Florida Panthers to get here, I mean, Vasilevsky, Ullmark, Swayman, Shesterkin, the best of the best that the East had to offer in net here. And meanwhile, Edmonton beat up like on like the backups to the backups here. It's not exactly murderer's row that they've had to face. This will, without a doubt, be the best goalie I think that they have gone up against. And in the meantime, this will be the worst goalie that Florida. They've beaten much better than Stuart Skinner. And if you're spending all your time worrying about protecting Skinner and your Edmonton on defense, well, that means there's a lot less focus on trying to get past Bobrovsky, who not many top lines have been able to do so far in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, when you match them up, Stuart Skinner versus Bobrovsky, you have to give the edge to Bobrovsky. But like I said, he's been inconsistent as well. You look at his numbers in last year's finals, they leave a lot to be desired. And as I stated already, neither of these two goaltenders rank in the top 10 in save percentage in these playoffs. But the fact that Florida was able to score goals on Shesterkin, certainly that's a massive step down going from Shesterkin to Stuart Skinner. So, I think you could be onto something with Florida. I think Edmonton's going to get their goals too. I mean, Connor McDavid is he can score on anybody, if you ask me.
There was a prop I saw too. It's interesting along your way because while everyone is looking for less goals in this series, and both defenses have been phenomenal. Penalty killing has been great on both sides. Edmonton, the best penalty scoring team in the NHL here. Panthers certainly held their own. 5 or more goals in every game of the series at 5-1. You think this could very well be a much higher scoring series than, especially early, than some guys are thinking here, Jess. I think that's because if Edmonton's getting theirs, we know Florida is going to get theirs on Skinner. It could very well be we get 5 or more goals. You think we're going to get some of those 3-2 games, 2-1 games in this?
I think that game 1 has the potential to be high scoring. But I think once these two teams settle in, they get to know each other, I think they'll put the clamps down. And, if this series goes deep into 6 and 7 games, I think those games are going to be low scores. You don't see too many high scores in games 6 and 7 of a Stanley Cup final.
No, you definitely are not going to on that size. Bennett plus 120 for a point, says Hal L. I agree with you on that one here. I also certainly think the save prop is interesting tonight. I've seen a lot of guys think that Skinner's going to see more shots than he has seen, and he has seen plenty. I mean, Dallas was peppering him there. If Oilers are only going to shoot 10 shots on Bobrovsky, they're not winning, Jess. They're not winning. So I do think maybe both offenses there and the shots and the save props or shots on goal props there for the goaltenders, not a bad look because I think 27.5 for Skinner here tonight. It feels like he could be under duress a lot in this first game at home with the last line shift, of course, as well.
Well, like I said, Joe, Skinner he doesn't have great numbers. He's not considered a great goaltender. He's sort of overperformed in the last few games. He's had some time to sit there and think about that. And I think that's certainly a key to the game for Florida is get after him quick. Because if you don't get that first period goal and you let him gain confidence, he's that much more likely to get into that groove that he was in at the end of the Western Conference Final. But that guy that we saw at the end of the Western Conference Final, he's not really that guy, or hasn't been at this point in his career,
right,
the majority of the time. So you certainly want to remind him of the numbers that he usually puts up and what kind of goaltender he usually is. And no better way to do that than score that first period goal and pepper him with shots. So I certainly agree with that sentiment.
Yeah, I'm all about confidence, and he gained it there with Dallas. But the reality is, I mean, they got 10 shots on goal and still won a game. I'm still trying to figure out how Edmonton did that there. But Jesse, in addition to, of course, the NHL, NBA, and the thorough ripping of Bryan Power, did you have anything in Major League Baseball? You've been crushing it in the MLB here, man. You're absolutely dominating this season. Did you have anything in Major League Baseball that you were looking at here today?
Well, you guys talked about that London series, and again, it's quite clear that Bryan was drinking heavily because that bottle was empty. And he mentioned the unknown stadium, but didn't they play here last year, the St. Louis Cardinals, and something like 15 or 7? Yeah, and both those games went well over double digits. So and with Suarez, with the Mets hitting lefties, Suarez potentially banged up, Manaea, decent overall numbers, but the Phillies are batting like 380 against him. So and wind blowing out. I mean, yeah, I think it's an easy for entertain. It's going to be one of those games on TV. If you want to throw half a unit on the over, I think that's the way I would go.
Yeah, I love it there. Did you were you impressed with the 0-0 game and extra innings? Did you think we were getting that with Poti? I mean, Yamamoto has been good. Don't get me wrong. Yankees are still trying to figure out how they didn't sign him. But he was dealing last night. Is this going to be a lower scoring weekend series, do you think? Or does do the runs come here a little bit today with Nasty Nestor and Stone on the mound?
I think yesterday's game probably scares me off of betting the total because I was on the over in yesterday's game. I thought for sure, you got the number 1 ranked offense and the number 3 ranked offense. You had the wind blowing out at Yankee Stadium. It was a warm summer day. I was expecting runs and they didn't come. And, that's betting on sports, right? You're always getting shocked by some of these results, but I'll probably leave that game alone. I don't have a strong feeling on Dodgers-Yankees.
I'm worried about Nasty Nestor because he's been getting tattooed. The barrels are coming, and the Dodgers have been pretty good against lefties, much better than they were a year ago against lefties here. And if he can't locate, this could be it's going to be an ugly day for good old Nasty Nestor, but it's always good. 7 o'clock Eastern time will be the first pitch in that one. A lot of day baseball here, and I believe City by the Bay had a question for us there, Dan, asking, I believe, what was the most underrated, do you think, Jesse, Major League Baseball team thus far, or being underlooked in the market that you would keep an eye on here? Is there a team that has stuck out to you that quietly is doing? Listen, we've had this in years past, like Baltimore the last couple of years, backing them with the plus 1.5 runs was just an absolute gold mine. The market never adjusted on them. Is there a team here this year you have noticed that maybe overperforming and the market is underperforming on them?
Okay, well, obviously, most people would agree that the Colorado Rockies and the Miami Marlins are the 2 worst teams in baseball. Colorado has always been they've always been a good bet at home. And around a week ago, they had won 3 straight home series. I think 8 of 9 they had won. They didn't do so well in their last home series, I don't believe. But I think as we get deeper into the season, you might look for Colorado as a home dog. Is something that I'm going to keep an eye on. They still got veterans in the lineup that can hit. They've got a few pitchers that I think with Gomber and Block that are underrated. So when guys like that are pitching for Colorado at home and they're an underdog and they're in that environment that they're used to and their opponents aren't, moving forward, keep an eye on Colorado as a home dog is how I'll answer that question.
And City by Bay, it's not an over thing because it ebb and flows with 162 baseball season right there, Jesse. There are teams that underperform. There are teams that overperform. There are teams that the market loves regardless of whether they're winning or they're losing and will always overvalue. But I've been saying this now for over the last week or so. There's going to come a time when Cincinnati is going to figure it out at the plate. And they have been doing just that. And it starts with Ellie De La Cruz. And as long as he has been less than stellar and he's finally starting to see the ball. I mean, the Great American Ballpark is a sandbox. There should be nothing but runs always scored at that place. But Cincinnati hasn't been doing their part. I think they're finally starting to do it. So I would say in the immediate future, Cincinnati is a team that, especially at home, is a team that I'm going to be looking to bet. They're a dog here today against the Cubs again. They won last night 3-2. They're starting to figure it out, and they're starting to hit, Jess. And Cincinnati at the Great American Ballpark, that's a team I am always looking to bet on and looking to bet some overs here at some point with them.
Yeah, and the Cubs have been brutal. I don't see how anybody would want to jump on the Cubs as a road favorite here in Cincinnati. So, perfect storm there. Cincinnati, I think, won 6 or 7 straight. The Cubs have lost 11 of their last 15. Yeah, I agree with you on Cincinnati.
Yep. And Toronto can kiss my ass. That team is terrible on every road. I want nothing to do with backing Toronto, Jesse. I would not be shocked in another month. Some of those guys are not on there. I don't know what. You can't keep firing the manager. Like there's some serious issues with this Toronto team. They just can't seem to get it done. They should be much better than what they are when it's all said and done. What do you have ready to roll over at WagerTalk.com on a loaded card here today and this weekend for that, Jesse? Oh, actually, SportsMemo.com. I'm sorry, over at SportsMemo.com.
I got 5 picks available for Saturday. I got CFL, I got NHL, and I got 3 baseball picks. So we got 3 totals. We got a play on the early game in London, so plenty of action today.
Little something for everybody here today. And make sure you head over to sportsmemo.com and check out Jesse Schule. Go grab those plays, guys. No better weekend to start partnering with Jesse than right now. Roger Long took the Reds at plus a run and a half. Ben Brown pitching. Yeah, I will take the lineup of the Reds over the Cubs any day, especially at home here. Definitely a team we're going to look to go. Let's go Panthers. What else can we say, guys? What else can we say? I'm sorry, Big Daddy. I didn't mean to rip Toronto, but, one word, like the Maple Leafs. What do you want? You rip them. Everybody rips them over there. Jesse Schule, best of luck here today. Crush it. Thank you again for ripping Brian Power. I'm so glad I'm not the only one. Titan CT, City by the Bay. We've got Dosey Boo in the house. RU Zen. The crew, John Finley, even though he was in the wrong chat room, but always a pleasure to see you figure it out. Went through the wrong door. Roger Long, always good to see you guys. Don't forget, hit that thumbs up if you could on the way out, guys. That would be much, much appreciated here. Andrew, let's go Panthers. I am with you here. Playmaker, Hal, always a pleasure to see you guys. Again, just a quick thumbs up, guys. We would certainly appreciate it. And get ready each and every Saturday. This is what we do here on Last Call at Wager Talk. So if you want to hit that subscribe button, you can do that as well. But any which way you cut it, we got plenty more basketball, NHL, Major League Baseball. And before we know it, guys, less than 90 days, we got football in our lives again. So a lot going on here. We appreciate you all. Best of luck with all the plays here today. Come back and see us again. Until then, cash those tickets, guys. Good luck today, man. We'll see you again soon.